Which game do you think is the toughest on the Georgia Bulldogs football schedule here in 2026? Tonight, I'm going to give you who I think it's going to be and my power rankings on this edition of the How About That Dogs Cast. And we're going to start right here with the schedule, because if we're looking at all 12 games, just the regular season, we have to get a good look at the schedule. And to start the season, we all know how it goes. The Dogs are going to open up with Tennessee State, then Western Kentucky, then they go on the road to Arkansas before coming back home to play Oklahoma and a big SEC tilt there in the first month of the season. But see, we're not just going through the schedule. And I'm not making predictions on wins and losses tonight. What I'm going to do is tell you which games I think are Georgia's toughest. We're going to start with the weakest opponent, the easiest win, if you will, and then we're going to move all the way down to figure out who I think is going to be the most challenging victory for Georgia here in 2026. Now, I mentioned it off the top. Tennessee State comes to town. That's who the Dogs open the year with, and that is going to be my number 12 team. In terms of power rankings, Tennessee State, regardless of how good they might be this year, an HBCU is not going to compete on the field with the Georgia Bulldogs. So this game doesn't even have a line for it. I hope everybody comes out there, plays hard, has a great time in the Classic City, and everybody walks off the field without injuries, and we move on through the rest of the season. A good way to get things started for the Dogs here in 2025. But without a doubt, Tennessee State is going to be the 12th ranked team in terms of my power rankings here for the 26th season. And I know what you're probably assuming. Well, the out of conference, of course, is going to be Georgia's easiest walk into it. That's going to be 12 and 11. But then you see it's actually going to be the Arkansas Razorbacks. What? Yes. I have the Arkansas Razorbacks as my 11th most difficult victory for the Dogs this year. Why is that? Why are they ahead of Western Kentucky? Well, Western Kentucky is a team that won a bowl game last year, that competed for the conference championship last year, and they are favored to do so again this year. They are going to be competitive in their league. We'll get to them in a minute. The Arkansas Razorbacks, though, they are coming off a 2-10 regular season last year. Yeah, the ball didn't bounce their way a couple times, but more often than not, Arkansas just didn't have it together. So much so that they got their head coach fired. The beloved Sam Pittman, who I'll just keep putting it out there into the universe. Sam, if you feel the itch, you're welcome in the Classic City anytime. Come on back to Athens. We'll find a role for you. But the Razorbacks have moved on. And they have a new head coach. And they're going to have to find new playmakers all over the roster. The schedule is brutal for Arkansas. Not that that necessarily figures into what I'm doing tonight. It's just a fact. So the Arkansas Razorbacks are going to be on a rough go here in 2026. And because they are having to essentially build this thing up from the studs, I think that this is going to be the second easiest game for the Dogs to win, even though it's on the road. And that's not an easy trip out to Arkansas. So Arkansas checking in at the second easiest win this year for the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, the next one will be those Hilltoppers of Western Kentucky. They're going to slot right in there at number 10. As I mentioned earlier, this is a team that is expected to contend for their conference championship. This is a team that's expected to make a bowl game. They're on solid footing, and they will not be intimidated by coming to Athens. Do they have the athletes to play for 4 quarters in the hot summer sun in the Classic City? Probably not. Georgia should go out there and handle this game. But it's not like Western Kentucky's going to run and hide when they see the Power G on the side of the helmet for our Georgia Bulldogs. So, slotted in at number 10, Western Kentucky. I think the Dogs, if we're being fair here, I told you this is not a prediction show, but I think they should handle all of these opponents as we make our way down through the list. Now, here is where things are going to start to get a little bit more interesting, because we're really going to be dealing with mostly SEC schools from this point forward. And the first one that comes up is the Vanderbilt Commodores. Now, I know that Vanderbilt is not the same Vanderbilt. I really appreciate Clark Lee and what he's building there in Nashville. Just ask Alabama. Some say they don't want any part of Vanderbilt anymore, and this game has actually become a rivalry for the Crimson Tide. so be it. But I just don't think that this version of Vanderbilt is going to be much like the one we saw last year. You don't have Pavia back at quarterback. You don't have NFL level playmakers at tight end and wide receiver the way they did last year. The lines of scrimmage are not going to be as good for the Commodores. And they're going to be breaking in a new quarterback, probably the true freshman. And as a Georgia Bulldogs fan, it's just going to be a whole lot of fun to see that young man come between the hedges wearing a different color. And then he can figure out whether or not he made a good choice by choosing to go to Vanderbilt. But we'll leave that for later. In terms of how much stress it's going to put on the Georgia Bulldogs to handle this game, in terms of matchups, then I'm going to put Vanderbilt all the way down here at number 9. I think they take a significant step back from the team that they were last year. They will still play hard. They will still be competitive. I just don't think they're going to have the depth that they need. They don't have the playmaking ability that they had last year. And I think that's going to show up when you play teams like Georgia, especially fairly early in the year where everybody's still mostly healthy. So Vanderbilt, number 9 on my power rankings as we count this thing down. Next up are the Auburn Tigers. Man, we love to hate us some Auburn. Auburn is one of Georgia's 3 actual rivals, the Deep South's oldest rivalry. That's how we talk about it. There's only one other football series in the country that has been played more regularly or more consecutively than Auburn and Georgia. With all that said, and this game has a warm spot in my heart and a fiery spot for how much I dislike those Auburn Tigers, Plainsmen, War Eagles, but I just don't know that they're going to have what they need to pony up and compete with Georgia this year either. They have a new head coach. They fired Hugh Freeze. He's probably out there hacking away at par somewhere. They have a new quarterback who was brought in by that new head coach from his previous team. They lost what many people consider to be their best playmaker to the transfer portal in the offseason. Yes, they still have playmakers at Auburn. Yes, the quarterback can make plays for them. Yes, the head coach has what it takes to win on the Plains. At least that's what I think at this point. But in terms of what they're going to be this year and how it all comes together, and the fact that they have to come to Athens to play Georgia, I don't see things lining up for the Tigers this year. I think Georgia is going to handle business here. Again, not a prediction show, but this is a game that they should manage to go out there and impose their will on their opponent. And I have Auburn at number 8 here on my countdown in terms of power rankings for the 2026 Georgia Bulldogs football season. Now, I said the rest of these games would be mostly against SEC opponents. I didn't say all. Of course, that means I have to be talking about the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. I'm going to slot them in here at number 7. And I paused when I was putting this list together here at this point because I have a tremendous amount of respect for Georgia Tech, another one of Georgia's 3 actual rivals. And I know that Georgia Tech believes that over the last couple of years, they've been just a cat's whisker from snapping our Georgia Bulldogs, from stepping up there and biting us in front of the Thanksgiving holiday weekend audiences and shocking college football, and it just hasn't happened because Georgia runs this state. Brent Key can offer Andrew Smart all the scholarships he wants. That's not going to change, especially not this year, because the Techies, they have lost their offensive coordinator, they've lost their quarterback, they've lost a bunch of key pieces across the field. Now, they did bring in Justice Haynes in the transfer portal, so they're going to have that going for them. But on the whole, I think Georgia Tech's just going to be replacing too much to be much higher than the middle of the pack here. And not even the middle, but on the back end of the middle of the pack here in the power rankings for the 2026 football season. Again, I respect Brent Key. I respect what he's doing at Georgia Tech. I think he's good for that program. I think it's good when Georgia Tech is a competitive program in the state. They seem to be recruiting pretty well this offseason, but not this year. Georgia and Georgia Tech in 2026 are going in opposite directions, and I think that's going to be borne out when the two meet on the field of play here this season. I'll tell you one thing that I wish you would do is meet me on the field of play over at How About Them Dogs Plus. Take advantage of this super insanity summer offer here. Get 3 months of top tier all-inclusive coverage for just $3. You cannot beat it. Head on over there, check it out. I'm certain you're going to love it. So now Missouri, they're coming up at number 6. We're beyond all the out-of-conference games. Nothing left the rest of the way except the SEC schedule. First up on that list, the Missouri Tigers. Now, at a glance, when you talk about the team out in Middle Earth, you understand that, yep, they have a pretty good quarterback, but he's new to Missouri. He was the guy at Ole Miss last year until he got hurt, and then he wasn't. And Trinidad Chambliss became who he was. So Austin Simmons said, I got to get up out of here. He goes to Missouri. He's handed the starting quarterback position in spring so they can go ahead and start to get some familiarity there. Missouri probably has the best running back group in the SEC. If it's not Missouri, Georgia's in that conversation. Alabama may be in that conversation, but it very easily could be Missouri. I mean, they do return Ahmad Hardy, who put up great numbers last year, but against the best competition he faced, kind of seemed to disappear. So I think given that, and given the fact that I don't expect Missouri's defense to be as good this year as it was last year, and you have a new quarterback coming in to take over there for the Tigers, I think they're going to be competitive. I think they're going to be in the mix. They're going to have a good year, but I don't see them being in that upper tier where they're really going to challenge the heavy hitters, the big players that we all expect to take the field here in 2026. So the Missouri Tigers are checking in at number 6 in my power rankings here for 2026. So where am I going from here? Well, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party in those Florida Gators, which this year is going to be here within the state lines of the great state of Georgia, in Atlanta, down at the Dome. And this is pretty cool because it's a little bit of a taste of the home and home, but not really. They should have played this thing in Athens. That would have been crazy good, but instead we get Atlanta this year, Tampa next year, and then back to Jacksonville the following year. It's the Florida Gators. I don't have to say a whole lot more. I think you guys all know how much I hate the Gators in everything they do, but they also have a new head coach this year. I'm not going to cry any tears for them. John Summerall's coming up from the G5, and he seems to be what Florida wants him to be. So far, during the offseason and the honeymoon grace period here, he has won everything. He's doing fine in recruiting. The team seems to like him. The community and the fan base seem to love him, and hopes are high down in Gainesville. They just committed a $1.4 billion to upgrade their stadium. So Florida is investing in football. They're trying to get back to being something that they think they should be. But this is Georgia. In Georgia, Kirby Smart, he don't lose to Florida. It's personal. I've said that over and over and over. I think this will be no different. I think John Summerall comes with his new Gator team into the state of Georgia, and I think it's not going to go well for him. And I think the Georgia Bulldogs are going to take care of business that day. But with all that said, given the talent that Florida has on the roster, given the hopes that they have, the belief that they're currently riding with, I think this could be a game that is not a blowout type situation. It's a game where Florida's going to come in, play hard, and that's why I have it at 5 on my power rankings in terms of matchups and how difficult it's going to be for the Dogs to get this thing done here in 2026. So there's only 4 slots remaining. Where are we going to go from here? I thought about this a lot, and to be quite honest, there's a couple of these that we could have probably flipped a coin. I'll do my best to explain my reasoning as we go through it, but checking in at number 4, I have the South Carolina Gamecocks. Now, there's a certain amount of you who are watching this right now who just laughed, or you're shaking your head and you're thinking I'm crazy. I just know that this game is a game that means a lot to the people of South Kakalaka. It means a lot down in Columbia. It happens late in the season when we don't know what the injury situation is going to be across the conference, and we have to go play it on the road. Now, from my positive perspective as a Georgia Bulldog fan, you're going to look at this and say, well, that means that Georgia's going to be hitting on all cylinders. They're going to go down there and take care of their business. Maybe, maybe not. In terms of what South Carolina could be, they have playmakers on the field, and they could really do some damage to the Dogs. So that's why I have South Carolina at number 4 here. I think it's going to be a rock fight. I think it's going to be a good game, and I'll save my predictions for a later date. Moving right along, number 3, the Oklahoma Sooners. I spoke about this in a previous video. I think this game is going to be one with John Mateer healthy and that defense coming back. Venables has things rolling out there for the Sooners. I think this game is going to challenge Georgia early in the year. That's why I have it at number 3. I, for one, am not overlooking what this game could be, both early in the year and at the end of the year, what it means. So the Oklahoma Sooners are my number 3 team here in the power rankings. And there's only 2 left. Who's it going to be? I'm going to go with the Alabama Crimson Tide at number 2. Here's where we could have flipped these things around. I very easily could have put Oklahoma here. That's how much I think of Oklahoma. But I'm going to put Alabama here because I learned my lesson the last time Georgia went to Tuscaloosa. I didn't respect that crowd. I didn't respect that stadium or that atmosphere. I saw something that night. I've changed my opinion on it. That is why I give Alabama the edge here, slotting them in at number 2. And at number 1, Ole Miss, the Rebels. This is clearly the most challenging game on paper in the preseason for the Georgia Bulldogs. They seem to have a hard time going to Oxford. Kirby doesn't have a hard time anywhere except Oxford. We saw who and what Trinidad Chambliss became last year. We know he's coming back. Kewan Lacey's coming back. That defense is coming back. Not exactly the same, but they're going to be pretty good. Again, not a prediction show, but when I look at which games might be the most difficult for Georgia to go down there and get the win, this is the one that I'm going to put at number 1. So that is my 5-star, can't miss, must watch game of the year for the Georgia Bulldogs when they travel down to play Ole Miss at the Grove. Kirby is not afraid to go on the road. He'll play anybody, anywhere, anytime. And that is exactly the kind of attitude the Dogs are going to have to take this year when they go on the road, because their toughest games outside of Oklahoma are on the road. The Dogs are going to have to be road warriors if they're going to have the kind of season that we all hope that they can have here in 2026. The power rankings are what they are. Power rankings based on how difficult I think it's going to be for Georgia to go out and get the victory here in 2026. And as we ran through it, it didn't take long. We got right down to it. And you can see at the end there's a lot of heavy lifting being done by those final 4 teams. Let me know in the comments below how you would rank them. This is how I went with it. I understand Alabama has a new quarterback. I understand they couldn't run the football and they have questions on the offensive line. And yet, I'm giving that home field advantage for Georgia against Oklahoma enough weight to make the difference here until I factor in that Alabama has Georgia at home. And how much I respect Bryant Denny in Tuscaloosa right now gives them the edge at number 2. So let me know what you think below. I'm very interested in hearing it, and I cannot wait to hear what you have to say about it on the other side. Go Dogs!
Told him, how about them fucking dogs? That's what I told him.